Let's Just Pretend, Chapter 10. Let's Just Pretend, Chapter 10, Part 1. The engagement party was in full swing, and Orm had never felt more uneasy. The garden was lit beautifully with strings of golden lights hanging overhead, casting a warm glow on the gathered guests. Elegant music played in the background, and laughter floated through the air. Yet none of it managed to distract Orm from what she was witnessing. Ling stood near the refreshment table, chatting casually with one of Orm's cousins, Anya, the flirty one with long lashes and a knack for turning every conversation into something suggestive. She was giggling, twirling her hair, and inching closer to Ling with every laugh. And Ling? She was smiling politely, even charmingly, though her body language stayed closed off. Still, to Orm, it felt like watching a slow car crash. From across the yard, Orm clenched her champagne glass tighter. "She's just being polite," she muttered to herself. "It's Ling. She always plays it cool." But the tightening in her chest didn't agree. Anya leaned in, her hand brushing Ling's arm. That did it. Orm abandoned her spot by the fountain and stormed over, trying to look composed, trying not to glare. "Hey, everything good here?" she asked, sliding between Ling and Anya with a little too much force to be casual. Anya blinked, then smiled with thinly veiled amusement. "Perfect. I was just telling your fiancé how lucky you are." "Yeah, I know," Orm said, her voice saccharine but sharp. She laced her fingers with Ling's and tugged her slightly back. "I don't need reminding." Ling looked down at their hands, one eyebrow raised in faint surprise. "Orm," she said softly, once Anya had walked off with a shrug. "Was that necessary?" Orm didn't answer right away. The jealousy was irrational, she knew that, but it didn't stop her from feeling it. Not when it came to Ling. Not when other people got to look at her like that. Not when Orm had no idea what was real and what wasn't anymore. "I just didn't like her touching you," she said finally, not meeting Ling's eyes. Ling's brows rose slightly, and her lips curved, not into a smirk, but something softer, something unreadable. "Noted." They stood there for a moment, hand in hand under the lights, and Orm felt more exposed than ever. Orm could still feel her heart pounding even as Anya walked away. It was a cocktail of feelings, jealousy, panic, confusion that buzzed beneath her skin like electricity. She wasn't supposed to feel this strongly. That wasn't part of the deal. They were faking it. She had reminded herself of that 1,000 times since Ling moved into her room, into her bed, into every waking thought. And yet, the idea of anyone else seeing Ling, really seeing her, made Orm's blood boil. Ling tilted her head. "You okay?" Orm forced a smile. "Yeah, just party jitters." Ling didn't push further, but she didn't let go of her hand either. That alone made something ache deep in Orm's chest. They moved to the edge of the garden, closer to the lantern-lit trees. The buzz of conversation continued behind them, a pleasant hum that felt distant now. "She was flirting with you," Orm blurted, hating how petulant she sounded. Ling gave a short laugh. "She flirts with everyone." "She touched your arm." "And I didn't let her touch anything else," Ling said calmly. "Orm, I've been yours this whole time, even before this arrangement." That stopped Orm cold. Her head whipped around to look at Ling. "What does that mean?" Ling's gaze flicked to her face. "It means you don't have to compete for me. Not with Anya. Not with anyone." "But," Orm swallowed, throat suddenly dry. "But we're not actually—" Ling didn't wait for her to finish. "Aren't we?" That shut her up. They stood in silence for a long moment, tension hanging thick between them. Then Ling gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind Orm's ear. Her fingers brushed Orm's cheek, sending sparks down her spine. "You're the only one I see, Orm," she said quietly. "Even when you're trying to pretend none of this means anything." Orm didn't know how to respond. She couldn't look away, but she couldn't speak either. The air between them crackled with something bigger than either of them had expected. And when Ling finally smiled, soft and knowing, Orm felt like the world had narrowed to just them under the string lights, every lie they'd told now tangled up in a truth too big to deny. Let's just pretend. Chapter 10, Part 2. The party buzzed around them. Champagne flutes clinking, guests laughing, soft music floating through the garden. But Orm felt like she was about to combust. Even after Anya left, more and more people had come to talk to Ling, complimenting her, leaning in too close, laughing too hard at her jokes. It wasn't Ling's fault. She was magnetic. She didn't have to try, and that was exactly what made it worse. They stood side by side as one of Orm's old family friends, a tall, glamorous girl named Ploy, chatted animatedly with Ling. Orm barely registered the conversation. All she saw was Ploy's hand lingering on Ling's arm again. Why did everyone think it was okay to touch her? "Can we go inside?" Orm said, her voice tighter than she meant. Ling turned slightly. "We're in the middle of a conversation." "With her?" Orm snapped. Ling blinked. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," Orm said too quickly. "Forget it." But Ling didn't. She gently placed a hand on Orm's back and guided her away from the crowd, into the house where the chatter and clinking dulled to a hum. "Talk to me," Ling said. "What is this really about?" Orm stared at her, throat tight, pulse racing. "You don't get it. You're so used to people throwing themselves at you, you don't even notice." Ling looked taken aback. "And you think I'm entertaining them?" "No," Orm said. "But I don't know what this is. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel." Ling's expression softened. "You're supposed to feel like you're mine. Because you are." Something in Orm cracked. "We're not real, Ling." The words echoed in the hall, louder than she intended. Ling froze. "We're not," Orm continued, voice shaking. "This whole thing, this relationship, it's fake. We both agreed." Ling stepped back slightly. "Is that really what you think?" Orm's chest heaved. "It's what it is." For a moment, Ling didn't move. Her gaze searched Orm's face, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once, curtly. "Got it," she said. "Ling—" Orm reached out, regret already bubbling in her throat. But Ling shook her head. "No, it's okay. You've made yourself clear." She turned and walked away, heels clicking softly against the marble, leaving Orm standing alone by the stairs. The silence that followed was deafening. Orm remained frozen, heart pounding in her ears. She hadn't meant to say it like that. Or maybe she had. Maybe she wanted to test the boundary she wasn't ready to admit she had already crossed. Behind her, she could hear the party continuing outside, clinking glasses, bursts of laughter, the band tuning their instruments for the next song. But in the hallway, it felt like everything had stopped. Orm had never felt so alone in a house full of people. She sank onto the edge of the grand staircase, gripping the banister with trembling fingers. "What the hell did I just do?" she whispered to herself. The words had come out so fast, so raw, a defense mechanism wrapped in hurt pride. She had watched Ling pull away and had done the only thing she knew how to do, push harder. But it had worked too well. Orm covered her face with her hands. The weight of the lie she'd clung to was crushing her. She had told everyone, and herself, that this was fake, that this wasn't supposed to mean anything, that she could control it, except she couldn't. Ling had been more real than anyone else in her life. She had seen through Orm's every wall, stood by her when she was at her most bratty and unbearable. And when Ling had started looking at her like she was precious, Orm had panicked. Now she'd shattered whatever had been building between them. The door creaked faintly as someone stepped into the hallway. Orm's breath hitched, but it wasn't Ling, just a staff member carrying empty plates. Orm stood slowly, swallowing down the knot in her throat. She couldn't fix it yet, not until she figured out what she really wanted and what she was willing to risk for it. Let's just pretend. Chapter 10, Part 3. Orm walked back out into the garden, with her heart dragging behind her like an anchor. She half expected everything to look different, for the entire party to have turned gray in the wake of what she'd just said. But the guests were still mingling, laughing, clinking glasses like nothing had happened. She spotted her mother talking with Aunt Maylie and a few of the cousins near the dessert table. Determined, Orm approached them, pulse hammering in her ears. Her mother looked up and smiled. Orm, darling, where did you run off to? Orm opened her mouth. Ling, her voice cracked. It's not real. There was a beat of silence. Then Aunt Maylie snorted into her champagne. Orm blinked. You knew? We've known for a while, her mother said gently. At least most of us. How? Orm asked, stunned. Aunt Maylie rolled her eyes. You really thought you could fake a relationship in a house full of nosy aunts, cousins, and grandmothers? Please, one of the twins overheard you that first night in the hallway. They told their mom. Word got around. Orm's jaw dropped. And no one said anything? We saw the way you looked at her, Orm, her mother said with a shrug. It stopped feeling fake pretty quickly. I didn't. Orm trailed off. I didn't know how I felt. Aunt Maylie patted her shoulder. Sweetheart, everyone else did. Everyone but me, Orm whispered, feeling her cheeks burn. Her mother stepped closer. You weren't fooling anyone but yourself. Orm's throat tightened. The words landed with a painful kind of clarity. All this time she had been so focused on preserving the illusion, on protecting herself, that she hadn't noticed she was the only one clinging to it. Everyone else had already seen the truth. She looked toward the path Ling had taken. It felt too late. Maybe it was. But she's gone, Orm murmured, more to herself than anyone else. She left because she thought you didn't care, her mother said. The question is, do you? Orm's lips trembled. I don't know how to fix it. You start by being honest, her mother said, and this time, not just with everyone else. Orm nodded slowly, her chest aching with the weight of everything she hadn't said. The truth had never been more terrifying, but it was the only thing that might bring Ling back. Uncle Danai wandered over, holding a half-eaten skewer of grilled prawns. I told you the night she brought Ling home, he said, addressing no one in particular. She looked at that girl like she hung the moon. I said the same thing, Aunt Maylie agreed. But did anyone listen to me? No. You say that about every couple, her mother said with a smirk. I'm right at least 70% of the time, Aunt Maylie replied proudly. Orm stood there in stunned silence, letting the voices of her family wash over her. She wasn't used to them being so perceptive, loud, yes, overbearing, definitely, but emotionally insightful? That was new. Her younger cousin popped her head out from behind the drink table. I thought it was real since you always smiled like an idiot when she brought you your coffee in the mornings. I thought it was real when I caught them in the kitchen at 2 a.m. Once, said someone else. Ling was cooking for her. Really? Orm said, incredulous. You all talked about this? Of course we did, her mom said. We love gossip. But more than that, we love you. And we saw the way Ling took care of you. We knew this was more than a game to her. Orm pressed her fingers to her temples. I feel like an idiot. Her mom leaned in and kissed her on the forehead. You're not. You're scared. That's all. I thought I could control it, keep it from becoming real. But it did become real, her mother said gently. And now that it is, you can't pretend anymore. So stop trying. The conversation faded as Orm sat down on a nearby bench under the fairy lights, the laughter of her family fading behind her. Her chest was hollow. The truth was out now, not just to them, but to her. Ling had walked away not because the relationship had started fake, but because Orm insisted on keeping it that way, and Orm wasn't sure she could live with the silence Ling left behind. Let's Just Pretend, Chapter 10, Part 4. Orm stayed seated on the garden bench, her eyes fixed on the twinkle lights overhead. Her family had drifted back to the party, giving her space, but their voices echoed in her head. You weren't fooling anyone but yourself. The words clung to her, a mirror she couldn't look away from. How long had Ling been waiting for her to catch up? How long had her family seen what she had refused to? The bench creaked as someone sat down beside her. It was her mom again, holding 2 small glasses of wine. She handed one to Orm, who accepted it silently. She loves you, her mom said, without preamble. Orm blinked at her. You think so? I know so, she said. She looks at you like she can't believe you're real. Like if she blinks, she might lose you. Orm stared into her wine. I pushed her away. I said the worst thing I could have said. Then go say the right thing. Orm shook her head. What if she's done with me? Then you'll know, her mom said softly. But at least you won't be wondering. Aunt Maylie joined them, holding a plate of mini tarts. Sorry to interrupt, but I heard emotional breakthroughs require sugar. Orm gave a weak laugh. I just want to be sure, she said. How do I know this isn't just guilt or pressure or confusion? Her mom looked at her for a long moment. How do you feel when she's near? Like I can breathe, Orm whispered. Like everything makes sense. Then that's love, Aunt Maylie said, popping a tart in her mouth. Congratulations. It's messy and terrifying, but it's yours. Orm leaned back and closed her eyes. She wasn't sure how to fix what had broken. But maybe fixing it wasn't the point. Maybe honesty was the first step to something better, and she was finally ready to take it. Orm swirled the wine in her glass, watching the crimson reflection ripple and distort. Her voice was quieter now, stripped of its usual sarcasm. I didn't think it could be real because we started as friends, because it was supposed to be fake. Her mom nodded. Sometimes love grows where you least expect it. That doesn't make it less real. You leaned on her and she caught you every time. She's always been there, Orm murmured, her chest tightening, even when I was awful. That's called loyalty, her aunt said. It's rare, and it's worth holding on to. Orm let out a bitter laugh. I ruined it. No, her mom said firmly. You ran from it. That's different. But you can still stop running. Orm turned to her. I don't know how. By choosing her, her mom said simply. Not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because she's who you want. Orm stared at the string lights tangled in the trees. The garden looked magical, like something out of a dream, but she felt like a ghost inside it, hollow and aching for something she hadn't even realized she'd lost. I'm scared, she confessed. What if I tell her and she still leaves? Then at least you'll have said it, Aunt Maylie said. And if she stays, you'll know she chose you knowing everything. The weight in Orm's chest shifted, not gone but lighter. You think she'll listen? Orm asked, hopeful but fragile. She's been listening all along, her mom said. You just need to speak. Orm drained her wine and stood up, her jaw set. The path ahead was still unclear, but the next step wasn't. It was time to stop pretending, time to stop hiding, time to find Ling and tell her the truth. Let's just pretend. Chapter 10, Part 5. The party went on around her, music drifting through the garden, the soft clinking of glasses, laughter in bursts like firecrackers. But Orm felt completely still. She had slipped away from her aunts, cousins, and her mother, and now sat alone on the edge of the koi pond near the back of the property. She curled her arms around her knees and rested her chin there, staring blankly at the orange fish gliding beneath the surface. This was supposed to be her engagement party. The night where everything came together, where her lie had reached its glittering peak. But somewhere along the way, the fake had become real. Ling had become real. And now she was gone. Orm's reflection in the water looked tired, haunted. Her dress, beautiful, perfectly fitted, felt like a costume. The diamond ring on her finger, a prop. Everything felt wrong without Ling beside her. The memory of her walking away replayed on loop, her back rigid, her steps precise, as if holding herself together by sheer will. She hadn't looked back. That hurt more than anything. Orm wrapped her arms tighter around herself. I ruined it, she whispered to the fish, to the night, to no one. She had spent weeks building a lie convincing enough to fool her family. But in the end, the only one truly fooled was her. She thought keeping her feelings buried would keep her safe, that if she didn't name it, she couldn't lose it. But love didn't work like that. Love had its own rules, its own gravity. And now she was left behind, in the wreckage of her own denial. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She let it fall, too tired to wipe it away. "I didn't even get to tell her I loved her," she whispered. "And I do. God, I do." The koi stirred beneath the surface. The moonlight shimmered. And still, Orm sat there, alone. She pulled off the ring and held it in her palm. It sparkled under the garden lights, catching reflections of a future that might never happen. Her fingers closed around it, not ready to let go, but not ready to believe in it either. She could still remember the first time Ling had kissed her, the heat, the sureness, the way her hands had cradled Orm's face like she was something breakable, sacred. And Orm had let herself believe, for just a moment, that someone could love her like that. It hadn't been fake. None of it had. Ling had given everything, her touch, her jealousy, her patience, her unwavering care. She had carried their lies so convincingly because, for her, it had become truth. And Orm had run. She wiped her cheeks, but the tears kept coming. They weren't loud, heaving sobs, just a quiet stream, steady and unstoppable. A soft grief that curled around her like fog. She wasn't sure how long she sat there. At some point the music shifted to something slow, jazzy. Guests were dancing under the gazebo, spinning in pairs beneath a tangle of lights. Orm used to think she hated cheesy romantic things, but now she wanted nothing more than to dance barefoot with Ling under the stars, to whisper sorry against her neck, to start again. But Ling was gone. She closed her eyes. The night air was cool against her damp skin. She imagined what Ling would say if she saw her like this, curled up, miserable, finally honest. "You idiot," Ling would tease. "You should have told me." "I was scared," Orm would reply. "And maybe, just maybe," Ling would say, "so was I." But the conversation was all in her head. The real Ling was out there somewhere, no longer pretending, and Orm, who had wasted her chance, was left behind.